Reid Detmers has been sent down. The Angels' star pitcher, who was poised to be the ace of an otherwise pretty weak staff, started off the year so hot, a small corner of MLB fans began to raise the flag of a potential Cy Young candidate. That will have to wait, as Detmers has completely fallen apart after his first 5 starts, earning him a demotion to figure out what on earth changed between his first 5 and last 7 starts. Detmers is a top pitching talent in the league, and he's shown many flashes of just how elite he can be. At just 24, Detmers will most certainly fix himself and be back in the bigs before we know it. But what actually happened to Reid Detmers? What will he be working on in the minors? And, most importantly, what can he do to pitch well again this season? Reid Detmers started this year on fire. Detmers' first 5 starts seem to be the signs of the big breakout MLB has been waiting for, and at 24 years old, Detmers would have been set up for another around 7 years of domination. Despite pitching against relatively solid teams overall, throwing 2 games against Baltimore, 2 against the Red Sox, and 1 game at Tampa Bay, Detmers had 5 starts in 29 2/3 innings at a 2.12 ERA. Detmers also had good rates to project future success, having 3 walks per 9, 10.3 strikeouts per 9 innings, and 0.6 home runs allowed per 9 innings. With such great stats against good teams, and no peripherals warning for significant regression, it didn't seem likely that Reid Detmers would run into any adversity this season, much less a complete disaster. But as the Angel season fell apart, so did he, and his last 7 starts have been an entirely different pitcher than that first month. Detmers' skid was terrible, to put it simply. In 7 games started, he pitched 33 1/3 innings to a 9.62 ERA. Detmers couldn't even eat innings due to his massive jump in walks, as he walked 4.6 batters per 9 innings, while losing out on those juicy strikeout rates from earlier in the year. Even worse, the balls put in play were hit much harder, as he almost quadrupled his home runs allowed per 9 innings rate. As a result, his season data doesn't illustrate the great start to the year, but the shelling he received over the last 2 months. Across the season, Detmers has been barreled at a 9% clip, and when he has a walk rate of 9.7%, Detmers is combining well-struck balls with free base runners for a perfect storm of issues. But Detmers isn't just ineffective, as much of the underlying data offers a clear set of problems and solutions for this year. The number one issue with Reid Detmers is his fastball. Although he's increased his velocity during his MLB career, he still has just league average velo at 94 miles an hour. Relative to other fastballs with his velocity, however, Detmers does have a great amount of movement that suggests his fastball could be more valuable in the future. His fastball is 1.7 inches above average in vertical movement, meaning the ball fights against gravity better than most 94-mile-per-hour fastballs, giving the impression that it's rising more. Added with his good horizontal movement as well, using some lefty run, and his fastball should be at least serviceable, even if it won't bring a huge swing and miss pitch. The most obvious issue with his fastball is his location, as even slower fastballs can be effective in MLB. The issues are apparent by taking a quick glance at his heat map, as his fastball is concentrated not up in the zone and above the zone where it belongs, but instead primarily in the middle of the zone, with many of his fastballs being uncompetitive misses as well. Detmers' slider is one of his primary weapons, but it's only as effective as possible when his fastball keeps hitters honest. Just looking at the sequence against Jordan Westburg, it's easy to see how well his slider can play off the fastball if he can throw the heater in the zone. Detmers can sequence both righties and lefties by setting up the slider with a good fastball. Even though the fastball hasn't been there for Detmers this season, his slider is still a positive run value pitch. When his fastball is finally useful, the slider will be a crucial part of his effectiveness. Even though it's been a positive pitch, his command over the slider has been questionable as well. His heat map explains just how unpredictable his slider is, as the most popular location is right down the middle, and many of his sliders aren't chase pitches, but waste pitches. The slider is a pitch that should be thrown outside the strike zone, but only as far outside as hitters will chase it, and Detmers has not done a great job keeping the slider close to the zone. The biggest surprise of his struggles has been the failure of his curveball. The curve, which is a slow, big curveball, and was a highlight of his draft profile, was his most valuable pitch last year, but by StatCast's run value, is actually his worst this year. The only pitch in his arsenal with a positive run value is his changeup, which is a great sign as changeups can help starting pitchers find long-term success, but with 3 of 4 pitches in the negatives, it seems that Reid Detmers just doesn't have the stuff this year. The biggest problem for many of the Angels pitchers, but especially notable with Detmers, is his inability to finish off hitters in innings. When things are all going his way, Detmers just can't quite shut the door on his opponents. In 2-strike counts, opposing hitters have a 601 OPS, which in a vacuum is great, but since 2-strike counts favor the pitcher so heavily, that's actually a 139 split OPS plus, meaning that compared to the average hitter with 2 strikes, that same hitter with 2 strikes against Detmers is almost 40% better. In a more situational approach, Detmers has also struggled to close innings, quickly getting to 2 outs, but then falling apart. Looking at the OPSs of opposing hitters with 0, 1, and 2 outs, his inability to close out the inning is obvious, as hitters with 2 outs are nearly one-dotted. Typically, 2 outs is a sign of a pitcher doing well, as you've already gotten 2 hitters out, and that should be the lowest OPS of the bunch, but instead, it's the opposite. Even worse, with 2 outs and runners in scoring position, hitters are tagging Detmers to a 1.198 OPS, which is just astounding. Those 2-out rallies have haunted Detmers, as teams are hitting at an MVP caliber, and finishing both hitters and innings will be the main focus of Detmers' stint back in the minors. The numbers are ugly, and really that's a nice way to put it. In a year that Angel fans needed to see Detmers finally take that step forward for any hope to watch good baseball, the opposite has happened. But there are a lot of reasons to hold out hope that he'll be back and much better in a timely manner. But where does that hope start? Luck. Maybe Reid Detmers stepped on the foul line one too many times, or maybe he just has bad vibes. But his luck with batted balls has been tremendously awful. All 3 of his negative value pitches are massively underperforming their expected statistics. Now, expected statistics are almost never perfectly accurate, and simple things such as defensive shortcomings and the reality of the game means he won't reach those exact statistics, but he is due for significantly better performances. When the fastball is hit, batters are getting lucky, slugging almost 50 points higher than expected. The slider is underperforming by nearly 80 slugging points as well, and the most shocking is that curveball. That most valuable pitch last year that became his least valuable this year? A lot of it is due to batted balls off the curveball, expecting a 381 slugging percentage, but instead overperforming to a 719. Such a massive disagreement is unsustainable, and even if Detmers were to do the exact same thing for the rest of the year, it would be assumed that he would get better soon. Overall, batted balls against Detmers will most likely stop outperforming their expected values soon, as ground balls hit off Detmers are 94% more successful than the league average, which is certainly unsustainable. And fly balls are 41% more productive as well, with a home run to fly ball rate too high to maintain itself over the whole year. A big part of that overperformance is Detmers' barrel rate, which is unkind, but his relatively low hard hit rate and sweet spot percentage are actually good things. When hitters are squaring up his pitches, they aren't producing the best outcomes, meaning Detmers can throw pitches in the zone and still be effective. He just needs to continue to do so, which will bring his luck back to normal. But Detmers can also just pitch better, which, when compounded with regression to the mean, would mean he would improve drastically. For starters, Detmers and pitching coach Barry Enright simplified his windup to better get him behind the ball and moving toward the plate, making the motion easier to repeat, which typically leads to more command. Controlling his fastball and slider is going to be the key, as fastball command not only makes his secondary pitches better, but keeps Detmers ahead of the count and allows him to utilize those good secondary pitches. As an extremely young pitcher, it's not shocking to see Detmers struggle with consistent command, but this option to the minors needs to be where he finally dials it in and understands himself as a pitcher. Surprisingly enough, one of the most similar pitchers to Reid Detmers in terms of fastball profile and pitch mix is Astros breakout starting pitcher Ronel Blanco. Just like Detmers, Blanco has a four-seam fastball with similar velocity and spin rate, an upper 80s slider, mid-80s changeup, and a sub-80 mph curveball. Their similarities are almost eerie, as they even both have no-hitters in their young careers, but that's about where they end. Blanco has made the most of his pitch arsenal, and Reid Detmers should study how Blanco stays effective with a similar fastball. The fastball is key to likening these two young stars. Detmers actually has a more effective amount of vertical break than Blanco, but that is likely evened out by their different extensions. Blanco still doesn't have a great fastball with a -2 run value, and it is overperforming its expected statistics. But the root of Blanco's ability to work with a below-average fastball is command. Just comparing their heat maps side by side illustrates the value of being able to place the fastball well, as their very similar fastballs have a 4-run difference in value. If Detmers could just use his fastball like Blanco, he would likely take leaps and bounds forward, as he would dominate and be able to play his slider off that fastball. The pitching coaches in the Angels organization need to focus on keeping the fastball high, the slider away from the middle of the strike zone, and his mechanics repeatable, and Detmers will be up before the All-Star break looking better than ever. With the Angels season as over as it gets, Detmers has the room to experiment and find himself as a long-term piece in the Angels' future.